Alright, so in this video, I'm going to go over my Borah Gear Cuben Bivy. Hey everyone, Knowledge here with Reach Your Summit. Thanks for joining me. I've been getting a lot of questions about the bivy that I pair with my tarp when I'm out on the trail. I featured this bivy in my How I Deal with Bugs When at Camp video. I'll leave a link for that video in the video description below. So I thought I would go over the bivy a little bit more with all of you, let you see it up close and let you see how it is getting in and out of it. Now I have around 120 nights in this bivy so far. I don't use this bivy all of the time. Sometimes I use just the tarp on its own. I prefer using a tarp on its own as much as possible, but there are some benefits to carrying this and using it when appropriate. Just to get this out of the way, I paid around $190 for this bivy. The total weight on my scale is 4.5 ounces, and I had a couple of customizations done to it when I placed my order, and I'll go over that once I show you the bivy up close. So let me show you the bivy and go over some of the benefits and drawbacks to it. Now my bivy came with a Dyneema composite fabric stuff sack. I still use this when I'm out on the trail. Sometimes the bivy can get a little bit damp, especially here in the Northeast when I'm using it. I don't want to have this with my quilt and any clothing that I want to keep dry. But if I am out in a dry, arid-like environment, I have put my quilt and my dry sleep clothing and my fleece and pillow inside of this bivy, and I just stuff all of this right down at the bottom of my pack. You can even put your sleeping pad inside of here. Just keep it all organized and together. Makes for a very easy setup and breakdown. But here in the Northeast, I don't have that luxury as often, so I always store it inside of this stuff sack just to keep it from getting anything else wet inside of my pack. So the bivy I went with is a standard length, wide width. I can't remember the exact specs of this bivy for the length and width, so I'm going to leave that right down here. This works really well when I'm using a 25-inch wide Thermarest Neo-Air Uberlight pad. I've also used this with the newer Thermarest Neo-Air X-Lite and X-Therm pads, so those are 3 inches thick as opposed to the 2.5 inches with my Uberlight, but I still have the regular wide for those pads, so they're 6 feet long and 25 inches wide. I find that I have plenty of room inside of this bivy to use that type of pad, to use a 30 or even a 20 degree quilt like my Enlightened Equipment Enigma quilts. And depending on the location and the time of year and the hike, sometimes I can even fit my frameless hip beltless pack inside of the bivy with me just to keep everything protected and contained while I'm resting at night. So the floor of this bivy is made out of a 0.8 ounce Dyneema composite fabric. Then there's a 0.5 ounce mesh that goes from the shoulders up to the top of the head, from one end of the bivy to the other. So it's nice if it's really buggy at night, but it's still clear and I want to view the stars. Also helps with some of the breathability of the bivy, so I'm not sweating a lot inside of it. And then the upper fabric is an Argon 67. This is very breathable. It dries very quickly. It is very minimally water resistant. It is not waterproof. So if I am anticipating rain when I'm at camp, then I will set up my tarp with this bivy. The fabric has kind of a nice, soft, buttery, smooth feel to it, almost like a silk sheet. So I find it to be very comfortable. Then with the mesh, there are dual YKK 3 zippers, grosgrain sewn into the top with some shock cord attached, and that's going to help pull the mesh off of my face at night. And then there are also some gross grain loops sewn into the corners of the foot box and also the head, so I can pull this out and have optimal space inside of it. This helps if I'm on an uneven surface slightly, or if I'm on a surface that might be a little more slippery. Most of the time I just leave the bivy loosely laying on the ground, but it is nice to have that option. So the customizations on my bivy are with the fabric. I believe nowadays it's just an olive green that's available, but at the time that I was ordering it, there was a brick red and then this nice royal blue that was available. So I requested the blue for the top fabric. I also requested to have that same fabric for a head cap. So this is normally just going to be mesh, but having this fabric in place of that is going to give me a little bit of splash protection. It also helps give me a slight increase in warmth, so the bivy won't be as drafty, but that will also take away from a little bit of the breathability of it compared to if this was just all mesh in the front. I also chose to have the side zipper. So there's one option to go with just the chest zipper. So you're just opening the top right here, kind of just shimmying in and out of the bivy. But with the side zipper, it continues all the way around the side for about another 2 feet. So it gives me easier entry and exit, and I've been really happy with that. So that's my Borah Gear Cuben Bivy. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I'm not going to use this most of the time. If I can get away with not using it, I will just keep it in my pack, or I might even just keep it at home. It all depends on the type of hike that I'm doing, the location, and how the bug pressure might be in the area that I'm traveling in. What's nice about this is it gives my entire body a safe haven from the bugs. And if there's foul weather, it'll give me a little bit of water resistance. So if I get any splashback coming at me while I'm under my tarp, this bivy helps address that. Bivy also gives me a slight increase in warmth with my sleep system. That temperature increase will be dependent on the individual. For me, I find it usually gives me about an extra 5 degrees of warmth. I've used this in the winter time on backpacking trips with my tarp. I've even used this inside of a tent in the winter time, just when I might need that slight extra warmth. I can also use this on its own if it's very buggy and I want to still get a little bit of a view outside at night but have bug protection. If I'm in a lean-to shelter, I can also use this for bug protection. Also, depending on where I'm hiking, there might be active mice around, and this will help keep them off of me as well. So what's really nice about this is it turns my tarp into a modular system. Bivvies are not for everyone. They are very minimal and you can feel really closed in inside of the bivvy. So if you're claustrophobic, this might not be a good option for you. But if you're an avid tarp user and you want to have something just to address certain situations, the bivvy can be a great asset to your tarp setup. So let me set this up on the ground and I'll throw my sleep system inside of there and show you how it looks, and also getting in and out of the bivvy. I also have my Mountain Laurel Designs Monk tarp in DCF with me. So I'm going to show you how I would pair this bivvy with that specific tarp. In my dealing with bugs at camp video, I set up this bivvy with my Z-Pack 7x9 tarp, and this Mountain Laurel Designs tarp is 4 feet 3 inches by 9 feet long. So it's a little more minimal. I'm gonna show you all of that now. So I have my trekking pole here. You can always use a stick if I wanted to. And most of the time I'll use a footprint for the bivvy, just because of the fabric being a little bit thinner than 1 ounce. Plus the Tyvek gives me a nice clean surface to sort through all of my gear inside of my pack. So in some cases, I'll take the shock cord on the side of my pack, which has a little toggle at the end, and I'll attach those, and I showed you that in the bug video. But for here, I'm just going to use some 1.2 millimeter Z-Pax line, and then I have my trekking pole here. Then I'll just do a clove hitch. So most of the time I just use this, but I wanted to give you all an idea of what it looks like with an actual inflatable pad inside. Alright, so here's the Borah Gear Bivy with my Enlightened Equipment 30-degree quilt inside and the Thermarest NeoAir X-Lite NXT, so it has 3 inches of depth compared to the previous 2.5 inches. This is the regular wide pad, so 25 inches wide by 72 inches long. And then I have a 1/8 inch Gossamer Gear thin light pad underneath that. And then I have my Palante ultralight pack shoved in the head area of the bivy. Let me show you how easy it is to get in and out of this bivy. So some nights I'll just lay down like this if the bug pressure isn't too bad. I'll either do that or I'll use my mosquito head net. So this is with the pack inside of the bivy. And then if I have my pack off to the side here, a little more room now with the mesh pulled off, and I can always lift this up a little bit more if I wanted to. Just put a little extra tension on the line there and it'll pull it up a little bit higher. And I can side sleep inside of the bivy too. And then it's very easy to get in and out of. All right, now I'm gonna show you the Mountain Laurel Designs Monk Tarp with the bivy. And this tarp is made out of 0.5 DCF. All right, so this is the Mountain Laurel Designs Monk Tarp. And if I'm using the bivy with it, all that I need to do with the bivy and the Monk Tarp is just take this, feed it through both of these little toggles here, pull it around, and then I feed it back through the second one, and that's it. So that pulls the mesh off of my face nicely, and I get a decent amount of protection with the tarp. Depending on the conditions, I'll either go with this tarp or I'll go with my 7x9 Z-Packs rectangular tarp. And I'll put a link in the description for this video so you can see what pitches I like to use with my 7x9. But I can also do them to a certain extent with this tarp also, just because they're both flat tarps. So there you have it, the Borah Gear Cuben Bivy, or Dyneema composite fabric bivy. I've been really happy with this over the 120 nights so far that I've used it. Some of the benefits to it are that it adds a modular component to my tarp when I'm using a tarp. Gives me good bug protection, gives me a good amount of splashback resistance, gives me a little bit of extra warmth and a wind block when I need it. The other benefit to having a bivy with the tarp is that this is going to have a smaller footprint than most tents will. So I might be able to fit into smaller areas when I'm setting up camp. That's the benefit of using a tarp too. I can configure it to my surroundings and get a good amount of element protection, and in return, a good night's rest. It is also very lightweight and very compact, so it doesn't take up a lot of space in my pack. So some of the drawbacks to using a bivy is not going to be a nice livable space like you would get with a tent. Also, because you're so closed in and you have the fabric so close to you, you can get a little bit of condensation with certain bivvies. With this one, it has to be the right conditions in order for me to experience that. I might still get a little bit of dampness regardless, just if I'm in a very humid environment. But the nice thing about this one is that it breathes and dries very quickly. So, is a bivy for everyone? Not necessarily. If you're looking to go fast and light and you really enjoy using tarps like I do, this could be a great supplement to the tarp for times when you may need it. But for everyone else, you're most likely going to find a tent or a hammock system a better option. With that said, I like to use this on trips where I might need it and where I'm focused on just hiking all day and spending little time at camp. I'm not going to be using this when I'm out with others. I'm not going to be using this if I'm planning on spending a little bit more time in camp. So in those cases, I will either use a tarp if I'm able to get away with that, or I'll just use a tent. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions about this bivy, using a tarp, anything in any of my other videos, please feel free to leave them in a comment below, or you can contact me at any time at reachyoursummit.net. If you found any value in this video, you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and also consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. I'm always adding new content. I greatly appreciate your time and subscribing to my channel. So once again, thank you, and until the next one, see you on the trail.